So you can see how this is starting to come together and look like it's actually ready to attach to the dress. The last thing is to just basically press under this bottom edge of the bib as well. So all our top stitching edges are pressed under. We don't need to stay stitch this bit because it's a straight edge on the grain. So lay out your apron dress right side up and get your straps facing nice and straightly down, and then we've got our facing here. Now this should beautifully match the edges of your apron dress all the way round. So place that on there, match up all the notches and pin that on. As you're matching up your facing, the side seam of the facing should be right where the first waist dart is, so match that up. If it's starting to sort of stretch, the twill dress might be a bit more, have a bit more give in it than the facing. There's also a little snip here which matches to one of the lower bust darts, so just in case it's looking a bit like it might not fit, it will. And then you should have 2 centimeters, it should be 2 centimeters shorter than the dress, so you have a gap like that as well. So don't worry, you're doing it all right. Right, let's sew that on. So we're going to do another 1 centimeter seam allowance here, attaching the facing to the dress. Don't go over your 1 centimeter because we are on a curve here. So when you turn the facing in on itself, you do want the seam allowance to have a bit of stretch and give. So we're going to go all the way around. Make sure as well when you come to your darts that they don't end up, as you're stitching, going the wrong way, that you've pressed them in the first place. So just keep them in the right direction. Let's go all the way around now. Great, fantastic, we're so nearly there. Right, go back to the beginning of your facing and then turn the facing over, and we're going to understitch the curved edge. Understitch basically the seam and the facing all together. Really quite close to the edge as well, quite close to the seam. I'll just show you when I get a bit more through the machine how close. So we want to be as close as about 2 to 3 millimeters away from the seam, if you can see there. Now I'm just coming up to, these are the bust darts here. I'm still doing my understitching, but you'll notice that you can only go so far. Go as far as you can. You won't be able to go across the top of the bib. So just keep going until your machine just says nah. There we go, about there. Do a back stitch and then start again in the same place on the other side of the top bib. So probably come in about here and then carry on. Make sure you pull it as open as you can, then carry on down the other side. I'm at the trusty ironing board again, and look, it's really coming together. So now what we need to do is just allow this facing to sit now where it wants to sit, and press your facing down in position. And while you're doing that, and while it's nice and flat on the ironing board, it's a really good idea to just pin this lower edge. Right, we're now going to top stitch this bottom edge of the facing. So again, whenever we're top stitching a fold, top stitch it on the edge so it doesn't, as you're wearing it and washing it, end up folding inwards. So it's worth bearing in mind as well that this distance, really this is the edge of the apron, and you're going to see the stitching on this side, the stitching you're doing now. So if you can, just keep an eye and make sure that it's sort of about the same distance from there all the way around. It should be if we've made it and pressed it all accurately. So just work your way around the whole facing. So grab your pockets and find the drill holes. Place the top corners of your pockets where the drill holes are. Don't worry about tucking under all the edges as you pin it, because you can do that as you come to sew it. So just pin in the middle of your pocket where you can actually leave them in while you sew it. When you sew on pockets, at this top corner, both top corners, it really needs to have a bit of extra reinforcement, or else the stitching tends to come undone. So spin the whole thing round, because we're going to start upside down. We're going to start with a rectangle here at the top edge of the corner. Back stitch to begin with. I'm going to make my stitch length a tiny bit smaller, maybe down to a 2. Sometimes good to sort of stitch by hand so you don't miss where you want to be. Probably about 3 stitches across here. One more. Always put your needle down as you're turning corners and lift your foot up so you can pivot round, and so your stitching doesn't go all over the place. And now at this stage we can tidy up the edges, the folding under, and I'm just going to stitch again quite close to that fold all the way around the pocket, and then I'm going to do the other reinforcing rectangle on the opposite corner. So I've just sewn all the way around my pocket, and I'm just coming up to the last edge here, the outer edge. So grab your tie, because this is where it just goes in just by the hem, and we just secure that as we sew on the last bit of the pocket. So I've just tucked under about 2 centimetres, and that just gets stitched in all at the same time. And then don't forget we finish with our rectangle at the top of the pocket. So there's about 3 stitches there, and then don't forget needle down before you turn, and just finish that off with the back stitch there. While we're here, we're just going to just tie off, just double turn the end, so that stops fraying as well. So the last thing we're going to do before we do the buttons and the tie is to hem the final edges of your apron dress. So this is the side of your apron dress. So we're going to do a double turn fold, 1 centimetre and then another centimetre. I'm just going to press that first, and then I'm going to just stitch that down on the edge. And then on the bottom of the dress, again, we've got our notches here. Don't know if you can see that, but they will tell you where to do your first turn, and then the second turn on the hem is just slightly longer. It's about 2 centimetres, so 1 and then 2, and then stitch that down as well. I've hemmed my side edge and the bottom edge like that, and we're going to sew on your other tie now. So we've got the first one here where we inserted it into the edge of the pocket, and go and grab your opposite side. sew the opposite side to this, and you're going to sew the other bit of tie here. I'm going to just tuck in the end. I'm going to just sew that in a rectangle round there and then finish the edge. So here are our two sort of side edges of our apron dress. One has the tie attached to it, and I've just gone and stitched a buttonhole on the other side. You can see it better on the red facing there. So those are the corners of the apron dress, and now I'm going to show you how we tie all this together. So here's the finished apron dress, all done up, and the rest is really up to you and your fit. So where you put the buttons for the straps on the back depends on how long you want them over your shoulder. And then we have the tie here. So if I undo this, you'll be able to see the button on the inside here obviously goes into the buttonhole that we've done on the side there. And then your actual button, again, up to you and how it fits you best. I've actually stitched on a piece of webbing and stitched that just inside there. Just so you know, it's probably around about the same position as where you sewed on this tie here, but on the inside. I hope that makes sense. But it will, as soon as you put it on and try it, you'll see. So well done, guys.